Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and tonight I'm joined by Ewan Martin, also known as Ewan Boy Martin, from the comment section of numerous ACSOM bulletins and Matchday bulletins. Ewan, we must win tonight's game. It is a historically tricky trip up to Pittodrie. We go up and we win the game, but that only tells half the story. Interested to know your thoughts on tonight. Get involved in the comment section. We'll bring as many of you into the conversation and the discussion as possible. It finished Celtic 3, Aberdeen 2. We're 2-0 up at half-time. It looked as though we were coasting.
Cruising it.
We're coasting. Aberdeen make the changes. If there was going to be a change made at half-time, we spoke about this, it would be because we're comfortable, a la the Motherwell game at the weekend. That was not to be. Aberdeen came out the traps in the second half. Talk us through how you felt we dealt with that challenge in the second half.
Badly. I mean, there's a 10-minute spell. I mean, Aberdeen just became much more direct, very physical, getting the ball in the box quicker, running at us quicker. And we just didn't cope. I mean, you and I were discussing watching it before Aberdeen scored. We've got to make a change here because Aberdeen were overrunning our midfield. I mean, Hatate was just off the boil, especially second half. And Aberdeen were just running the midfield, and you just knew it was coming. The Aberdeen goal, and then they got the one, the other one got cut off, and then they got the second, and you're just thinking at that point, you're thinking, is this going to be a bad night? But thankfully, we've got a player called Jota.
The nerves during that second half, you and me seen the full range from the first to the second half of elation and then concern and worry and a wee bit of distress when it went back to 2-2. But the point you make in relation to Aberdeen coming back into it, they come back. We'll cover the first half as well, but they come back into it. And it's Ramirez who's good for a goal. I mean, he's a player that's, I think, I'd need to check. I think he's 13, 14 goals this season. So he pulls it back to 2-1. But it was just after that where the Aberdeen get a goal disallowed 2 minutes later. And you and I had that discussion. And it's actually Chancellor that brings it up in the comments field. Don't know why we left the sub so late when we've been so flat. It was at the point of the goal that was disallowed that you and I said, right, it's 3 minutes shy of the 60-minute mark, but we need to make the change at the moment because Aberdeen had us on the back foot. Lo and behold, 3 minutes later, they equalise. And, of course, it's Ferguson who scores the goal. How disappointing is it, though? We've praised Celtic for the defensive displays this season. We've got the most solid defence in the league. But again, it's two set pieces, one from the left, one from the right, that we failed to defend you.
Yeah, there was a 15-minute spell in that second half where we just lost our shape, our calmness. The good things we've been doing well. Aberdeen, you have to give Aberdeen credit for the way they kind of upped the tempo second half, and we just didn't like it. And when Aberdeen got that first goal, we were crying out. So you could see Aberdeen were on top, and we had to make the change. And I don't know why Ange waited so long. Again, when Aberdeen got the equaliser, at that point I'm thinking, oh my God, this could be a disaster tonight. Thankfully, we managed to run the park and go back in the lead straight away. But it was crying out for a change, as you said, after we lost the first goal.
Yeah, I mean, during that period where we're a bit concerned and we lose a 2-goal lead, I turned around and said to you, we also need to praise the team for the character shown and getting our nose back in front, because it's at that point that you could capitulate. Aberdeen had been the far stronger side. They were bringing the game to Celtic. They pulled the 2-goal deficit back. Yet we go right up the park and we score again. I mean, you look at the performances of several of these players. They've been on fire. Abada's been on fire. Hatate hasn't had a bad game until tonight. But let's not forget about the performance of Jota. He scores a brace. He tries to score a third with an acrobatic effort. And for me, quite clearly, he's a guy who's enjoying his time at Celtic. How important is that goal, though, tonight at Pittodrie?
Huge.
It's massive, you.
If he didn't score then, Aberdeen were still on the front foot then. And the way the game was going, you would have said Aberdeen were the team that were going to get the third goal, not us. So, yeah, I mean, it's around up the park, bit of a bobbly around. I think, was it Ralston heads the ball back into the box? There was talk of Aberdeen talking about maybe offside, but that was who was that? Was that Abada who stopped in the play, but then Jota runs on, scores from it anyway. But I mean, it came at a massive time. And Jota, he was all over the park. He was back defending.
Yeah.
I mean, he put a shift in tonight.
Doing the dirty work as well.
He had to do that tonight because unfortunately tonight there's a couple of players just not quite at it.
They were off it completely. We'll talk about Hatate. I mean, it's difficult to criticise a player who has been so good since he came into the Celtic side.
But I mean, coming from Japan, after the highs he's hit, it's natural to have a wee kind of, especially Petroji. Pitch wasn't great. You seen that? It was the ball was bobbling around, and it wasn't for a nice passing. You could see from the off, we struggled to.
It seemed to suit Aberdeen.
Aye, definitely.
It suited Aberdeen.
Not first half. I mean, first half Aberdeen were pretty poor, but second half they changed it, and fair play to them. I mean, they made it hard. And that was a hard watch. I mean, that last 5-10 minutes.
It was.
That wasn't easy to watch.
Well, Jock Spawning comes in on the YouTube to say that worried that we are still soft from cross balls. We did speak about that during the second half there, Ewan. And we're going to bring in as many of your comments as we possibly can. We're up at 1,400 live watching the post-match. And I'll tell you what, it could have been a lot worse. We've won the game. We went up to Pittodrie. It's a journey back down. It is. And, Aberdeen they need every point. The pressure that Glass is under up there from the fans, he is getting a fair bit of stick. And at 2-2, at that moment, they're in the ascendancy.
Tonight was a classic example of a game that could have went wrong.
I know.
I mean, we're top of the league again. Yeah, and then if we'd only last stay there for one game and then we drop points, we lose all that momentum, that belief. That goes in a second. But thankfully, and again, it shows you we are resilient. I mean, when things weren't going well, when we lose a 2-goal lead, we bounce back straight away, and then we see the game out. It wasn't pretty, but sometimes you've got to win ugly.
Well,
and, that's what we did.
Yeah, and Jock comes in to say that, Jock Spawn, and you can't win beautiful all the time. The disappointing thing is, and there's a few points coming through in relation to the defensive nature of the goals. The first one, it was the fact that you could see that movement and not a single Celtic player followed him for the first goal.
It's a crazy free kick. I mean, I suppose Aberdeen was well inventive, but I mean, we fell asleep. The guy just had how much space in the box. It was a good finish. I mean, there's a lot of bodies to get through, but bad from us.
He ghosted in. And then when you're looking at Ferguson, the stat, I mean, he scored 7 goals against Celtic. Wow. We know what he's capable of. He done it in the last game. He beats onto the ball. He done the exact same tonight with the cross ball. We need to do better now. Jake Ryan, though, takes it a stage further and reckons that the only thing at Celtic that hasn't changed is Kennedy and Strachan and conceding constantly from set pieces. The two must be linked and something drastic needs to be done. We won't keep winning. Well, we spoke about that in the second half. I says to you, it's interesting how when things are going pretty well, nobody mentions Kennedy and Strachan. Yeah, we've not done well tonight from set pieces, and I agree that we need to improve on them. But at this stage of the season, it's pretty clear Ange's happy with Strachan and Kennedy. I mean, they've barely had a mention in terms of a negative, this season. So every time something goes wrong, we can't focus on Strachan and Kennedy.
Yeah, I mean, we've barely dropped a point in the last, since God knows when, the last time. I mean, I know we've had like 3 draws and an X amount of wins in a row. I mean, was that our 7th win tonight in a row? Yeah. I think 7 or 8 maybe. But that's wins in a row now. So we're not dropping points. And I know tonight was ugly. Maybe fortunate in the end to kind of hang on to get the 3 points. But a team of champions does that. When things aren't going great, you still find a way. And tonight we found a way. Yeah, and this is when you realise how lucky it is to have a player like Jota. Because the guy was just... When the whole team's not playing great, we're not creating...
Keeps wanting the ball. Keeps wanting the ball.
But it's not just up front. He's coming back. He's fighting for it back and forward. I mean, if there's a man of the match today, for me, it's hands down, it'd be Jota.
Yeah. Patrick Harold, a win's a win, absolutely. And Whiskey Foxtrot comes in to say, Jota imperious. He was absolutely imperious. And if anyone was going to get another goal, it would have been him. It's decorating. Huge win, just shows nothing can ever be taken for granted. Now, when you look at this season and the amount of times people are comparing several aspects of the season to the Wim Jansen season, we know that went down to the wire. We know that it was a nail biter. We know there were afternoons, Ewan, where it was a topsy-turvy. We weren't at our best. Points will be dropped. And I think that what you said there in relation to tonight, it could quite easily have put the momentum elsewhere.
Oh, totally.
Because obviously they are turning the screw at Ibrox. But the way I'm looking at it tonight, it's 3 points, says Optimo. David Bradley, massive. Absolutely, it's a massive 3 points.
Huge.
But we want to talk about some of the performances, some of the individual performances. We've spoken there about maybe a frustration that things weren't changed up a wee bit sooner. But let's have a look at some of the performances, because two of the guys that came off, the first two players that came off were Hatate and Maeda. Now, since they've come in, there has been nothing but positivity, something of a furore over the January signings. And Hatate in particular has been very, very impressive. Mm-hmm. We've seen cameos from Maeda, and I said at the beginning of the game, I was looking forward to seeing him starting and hopefully getting the full 90 minutes. What was your thoughts on both Maeda and Hatate tonight?
I think Maeda did a lot of good running. He was everywhere. He was tracking back. Just didn't get the chance really to do much up front, like to put the ball in the net. But I thought overall he put a good shift in. Hatate was just a bit off it, especially second half. You know, I think when Aberdeen up their game, Hatate was still looking for that, really good killer pass, but it wasn't coming off. So we were losing the ball, and it was just giving the momentum to Aberdeen. So Hatate, he deserves a night a bit off it. And Maeda, I thought he actually did pretty good. I thought he did a lot of good running, a lot of good tracking back, made some good runs, good this and that, so he did all right.
There was a few occasions I felt Maeda was going to get in behind Gallagher. He's maybe just not got the sharpness quite yet. Mm-hmm. He's played a full season. He's travelled for the qualifiers for his country also. So you've got to take that into account and think, well, you know what, he's going to get sharper. But you have the options on the bench. Now, Dan Byrne comes in via Facebook. See, we do bring the Facebook comments in, Dan. Thanks for joining us. Absolutely abysmal second half, says Dan. Looked dead on our feet, not for the first time this season. And it's at that stage, I think, that there was definitely a feeling, maybe at the 60-minute mark, we spoke about it when Aberdeen had their goal disallowed. Make the change, freshen it up. You and I were calling for Rogic to come in. I think when the changes were made, though, it was the right changes. So he brings on Beaton for Hatate, who wasn't at the races tonight. But again, I loathe to be too overly critical of Hatate. It was always going to come, that performance that we got tonight. Beaton comes in just to try and solidify it. He's more of a defensive-minded player, so I get that. And we bring on Giakoumakis for Maeda. And Giakoumakis, again, the word that keeps getting used is he's a nuisance. That's the word that is associated with Giakoumakis. But he gave away a lot of free kicks. I think it was unfair on Giakoumakis. He was just putting himself about and he was penalised time and time again. But he does give you something different when you bring on Giakoumakis. It's got that
physicality. Yeah. And it's a difficult game tonight to come in that late on when it's 3-2. You want to cling on, you want to keep the ball, win the ball. So I think he was probably instructed, look, win the aerial battles, try and hold the ball up, just get your foot in the ball and try and keep possession as much as possible. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, he gave away a few free kicks. But I mean, he's a big lad and he can put himself about. Yeah,
he definitely can. And we don't have a love-hate relationship with Giakoumakis. He just had a couple of poor games and he was commented on. Now, Jungle Lion comes in. Welcome to the show. Thought the changes were too slow today. That seems to be a theme coming through the comments. You're shouting at your screen. Make the change. Make the change. I mean, the thing is, as well, the manager is also being advised by the people with regards to the heat maps. Strachan's got the data. Does the change have to happen now? And sometimes I think you can be too stringent. You've just got to look at the game and know that you need to make a change. You've got to stop Aberdeen in their tracks. And we saw it, when they scored that disallowed goal.
As soon as they scored the change, what was that, 53 minutes they scored? That's when us two were both saying, quite make the change now, because we had to gain control of the game back and we lost it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting a comment again. See, that's our second comment coming in from Facebook. It's not all about bringing up the same people all the time. If you make a good comment, we'll bring it up. Another 3 points closer to the title. Exactly, that's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And absolutely the most important thing for me as well, because these games at Pittodrie on a Wednesday night, particularly, a game where you've got your nose in front, it's a potential banana skin. Rangers are playing at home. They've no, Hibs haven't got a great record at Ibrox as of late. Maloney's under a bit of pressure. If Hibs get anything at Ibrox tonight, it's an absolute bonus. You're not expecting it. So we've got to go up there and do the business. And the way I'm looking at this is it wasn't a vintage Ange Postecoglou performance, but we've come away and we've won 3-2. The set piece defending, I'm pretty sure Ange Postecoglou will be all over that. I'm pretty sure Joe Hart, Cameron Carter-Vickers and Starfelt will also be disappointed, because we do have that prestige, if you like, of having the best defensive record. So where do we find that balance? We're being critical of the defence, but they've basically performed better than anybody else this season. So where do you stand on that? Is it just a few tweaks required? I mean, it's quite clear that...
I think, obviously, a lot of teams watching that tonight will think, there's a chink in Celtic's armour.
Yeah.
That's how you get us, to be much more direct, a bit of physicality, instead of, trying to do a slow build-up or hitting just long balls. But I mean, they were getting guys down the flanks and overlapping our flanks and whipping balls in, and they were big and physical, and we didn't like it. But we've played now twice at Pittodrie, and we've won both times. We don't have to go there again. We've taken 6 points out of 6. I'm happy with that.
I'm happy, I mean, 9 out of 9 against Aberdeen, as you say, 2 tricky ties up there. Mm-hmm. The first one, bit of a turning point, actually, going up there and winning 2-1 first time round. Now, the thing is, with regards to this, we've got to try and take a wee bit of the emotion out of the situation. It's right after the full-time whistle, and we can get caught up in it. And we've got a comment coming through here from Joke Steiner. Japanese boys aren't the players we thought they were. Now, come on. We've seen nothing but tremendous performances from Hatate. He was off the boil tonight. That happens. Mm-hmm. He's facing a challenge tonight that he's never faced before in the trip to Pittodrie. There was a stage of the game where you turn around and says, we've lost this in the midfield, and it's making the defence look bad because it's putting us under pressure. It was at that point that I thought, you've got to bring Hatate off. I mean, you'll learn from tonight, though. You've got to look at the positive out of that performance and say, well, you know what? He should learn from the fact that you don't go up to Pittodrie and it's all plain sailing and it's pretty football. Sometimes you've got to be in for a battle. It's a bit premature to be writing anybody off, is it not?
No. And the great thing is, I mean, to learn from a mistake and a night when you don't drop points is great. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would have been disastrous if we dropped points tonight. So it really would, because I think now, was it 12, 11 games left? Every game, I mean, it's all saying a cup final. Great, every game now, it's like a must win. We can't afford to drop anything. We've got to stay in front, keeps the pressure on that other lot, and it keeps us going in the right direction. So players like Hatate tonight, I think he'll take a pinch of salt. And he'll just look at it and say, look, boys, it was a rough night. We went at it tonight the way we should have been, but we got the job done. And at this stage, that's all that's important right now, getting the job done.
We got the job done. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We're sitting at just over 2,100 live, which is astonishing on a Wednesday night on a Celtic State of Mind. I'm going to bring this wee comment up from Chris Thompson. Welcome to the show, Chris. You're commenting on YouTube. And for anybody who's out there watching us on YouTube, get subscribing. Click the notifications bell. We've got loads of big content coming up, ACSOM related. Chris felt like the last 2 games never happened, as bad as the Alloa and Hearts nonsense. Now, I get what you mean, because it wasn't. It was by far a vintage performance from Celtic. But and by the way, you can watch the post-match against Hearts and Alloa. I wasn't that ecstatic myself, Ewan, after those games. But the most important thing is we're getting the wins.
That's it.
So you're not playing at your best, but you're at Pittodrie, which is a tough venue to go to, and we're coming away with a win. So let's look at maybe the character shown after the deflation of that equaliser to be able to get your noses back in front.
As Tom Roderick said just the other day, we've had 10 years of this. It's not a new thing. You know what I mean? And so we know there's going to be bad results. So not bad results, bad performances. But as long as when you have a bad performance, you still get the 3 points. That's the character. That's how you win titles.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and we know that. You can't always play beautiful football.
No.
You know, especially in February, rubbish weather, rubbish pitches. You know what I mean? It's miserable out there. You know, so you're not going to get beautiful football week in, week out.
Well, the big thing is, prior to the game, I'm regaling you with the story of a Celtic fan, long-standing Celtic fan, who's been watching the team since the 1950s, speaking about how entertaining this team is. Now, it doesn't change like that. No. It doesn't change after one game. And we've got to kind of temper that a wee bit. Scott Anderson on Facebook, midweek game at Pittodrie. Only thing that matters is the 3 points. Not a vintage performance, but still scored 3 away from home. And most importantly, we won. Yep. So I absolutely subscribe to that, Scott. Yeah, I mean, we've been doing the post-match reactions now for a couple of seasons, and there have been occasions where you come in and the emotions are running so high that you can't really see the wood for the trees. But tonight, I'm just quite happy with the 3 points. Moravcik 25 is the same. 3 points, no injuries, momentum, confidence raised, job done.
I actually thought tonight Greg Taylor had a good game.
Yeah, let's talk about Greg Taylor.
I don't know what everyone else thinks about Greg, but I thought he was really solid. I mean, I thought maybe Anthony Ralston was had a few more errors tonight on the other side, but I thought Greg Taylor was solid.
Yeah, I did. And
there was a bit in the second half. It was really good, quick feet in Aberdeen, attacking area.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, he's impressing me more and more.
It was an excellent move, actually. It was Taylor, Callum McGregor, and Jota were up top, left-hand side. That's the area of the park where you want the ball. And they were keeping possession. The frustration for me is they're probably looking into that box thinking, where's my target? Where is my target in there? But you're right. I mean, Taylor was a massive part of that. It was a must-win game. We've gone up there and we have won the game. Facebook user is asking, why are you picking on Ralston? Who did offer anything in the second half? Well, that's maybe a conversation within the comments section because we haven't really had much to say so far about Tony Ralston. Quite a few comments have come in relation to Maeda. Now, at the beginning of the game, I was all for Maeda starting because I thought, Giakoumakis, he's one of these types of players who runs himself onto the ground. And, I wanted Maeda to start, Jota down the left, Abada down the right. You were fairly impressed with his performance, the way he put himself about. I think looking at him, he's a completely different character and the way that he plays the game is completely different to Giakoumakis. There's a wee bit of stick coming in for Maeda, but I mean, Ange Postecoglou knows this player. He's managed him. There was talk that he was actually on the top of his shopping list above Kyogo.
But he just couldn't do it because of the timing.
Yeah, because of the timing. So, again, I'm not too concerned. He wasn't great
if you look
tonight.
back at that game, I mean, if you look back and watch it again, you'll see the amount of running Maeda done. A lot of running. And there's a lot of time he came back, intercepted the ball, won the ball back. May have not done great things as in a goal threat tonight, but he didn't. The service wasn't brilliant tonight for him. So, no, I mean, I still think he did a good shift. He did a good shift. I mean, he's a totally different player from Giakoumakis. But, I thought he was all right.
Well, Johnny, Ryan Maeda, not for me, just runs about. But I think what you've got to look at when he's doing that running and he's closing people down is he's stretching the back line, he's stretching Aberdeen, he's creating spaces down the flanks for the likes of Abada and Jota. So although it could be something that doesn't look as though he's contributing a great deal, I think he's stretching the defence. And whether or not he would start, obviously your first choice is always going to be Kyogo when he's fit.
Yeah.
At this moment in time, I think it's going to be all about rotation in various areas of the park, but particularly up top. Let's have a wee look at the starting lineup for Raith Rovers. What changes would you make to tonight's team, Ewan?
For Raith? Well, I'd bring back, I mean, you wouldn't have to, but I'd bring in Tom Roderick. I thought today we just kind of missed something when he's not playing. He's just got that brilliance about him. That killer, I mean, things flow better. Like the way he can pinpoint through balls for everyone. I think he's really good at that. So I'd bring back Roderick. Will he rest McGregor and play Beaton? I'm not sure if McGregor will want to play. And then you got Maeda or Giakoumakis. Who do you go for? I think he might go for Giakoumakis. But it's hard to call what Ange will do. I mean, he's got options now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But, I mean, we won't take the game lightly. I mean, it's going to be a strong team no matter what. But, yeah, I mean, you might find Scales comes in, back.
But the big thing for me is we have played a few games in recent times against lower league opposition at home. And it's not been a bed of roses. You could go as far back as Brendan Rodgers in the 2 games against Alloa and St Mirren. And they've come in, I mean, St Mirren took the lead. We beat Alloa 2-0, but the goal came pretty late. And Craig Gordon probably should have been sent off for Kung Fu kicking Greg Spence. Then you look at the game against Dunfermline, it went into extra time under Neil Lennon. And, you know, these teams, they can be very difficult to break down at times if they're well organised. And I just think that up top, there's been a suggestion that we could perhaps play Abada through the middle. If you were to do that, I think we just lose too much physicality. If you've got Jamesy Forrest on the right and Abada up top, you're losing the physicality that Giakoumakis brings to the table. A lot of people are saying that is running about enough for a first 11, but then there's the point coming through on Twitch from Snick67. Maeda kept a few balls alive today with his run and work rate. There was one occasion where he gets in behind the Aberdeen defence, keeps it in from going for a bye kick, and he's basically pushing Aberdeen right up to their corner flag. Although they've got possession with the throw-in, there's nowhere for them to go. So he does a lot of this work that's maybe not as obvious.
Scoring goals, if you're a striker, scoring goals is the thing we'll want him to see you do. But if you're not scoring goals, at least you're working hard for the team and doing something that's good for the team, which he done tonight. But we didn't really create much for him. I mean, I know we had some balls coming in here and there, but this is where I think when you got Tom Roderick in the team, you know, you get a much better ball to set players like Mayer up.
Without the hindsight aspect of tonight, obviously we looked at the lineup when we done the pre-match, and we looked at some of the changes. It's quite clear that Ralston was a forced change for Zoranovic. We haven't had any confirmation.
Is there any word in Zoranovic?
No confirmation, unless anyone can update us on the comment section, because you can maybe see the post-match interviews with Ange Postecoglou. It seemed to be a forced move because he wasn't on the bench. But then, you know, O'Reilly comes in, Rogic is benched, and Maeda comes in for Giakoumakis. And we didn't disagree with the Maeda change at the beginning of the game. O'Reilly in for Rogic. O'Reilly's such a class player that you kind of tend to say, well, that's fair enough. But, you know, Rogic being rested, I think we did see a completely different flow to the game. How big a factor was the lack of a Tommy Rogic in there to that?
Well, I do think he's become such an important part of the Ange system, the way we play. I mean, all right, you could say it didn't play against Rangers when we were fantastic. That's true. But look at the games when he has played and how good we've been, especially in difficult away venues. And Rogic has got a good record at Pittodrie. So, I mean, I was a bit disappointed that, well, would they come on in the last 5-10 minutes? But by that point, you know, just hold on to the lead. But, you know, I like Rogic to start most games, but I can understand Ange thinking, it needs a wee rest here and there. So, but we won. We won
the game.
We won the game.
This isn't a negative post-match. Yep. We won the game, and
I mean, we're all panicking in that second half. That's not a lie. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, we better not throw this away. But 90 minutes comes and goes, and we've got the 3 points. So
you showed the character, and if you win the game, you can't really question the decision of the gaffer, because he's won the game, so he's got it right.
That's it.
It wasn't a vintage performance. Egyptian King comes in to suggest that Zoranovic had a knock in training, so that's why he was out.
That's what I reckon as well.
And Vincent O'Brien is saying on YouTube, Julian has to come back in the hoops. That there was talk about maybe playing him against Wraith Rovers. He wasn't even on the bench tonight, so that's 3 games in a row that we haven't seen Chris Julian. Is that a concern for you? We didn't really focus on it before the game. Is it a concern that Julian has taken over a year to get back? He's back in the squad. He's apparently fit. He's sitting on the bench for a couple of games, and then he disappears for the last 3 games. I mean, the performance against Rangers was such that it barely got a mention that Julian had dropped back out of the side, but we've not seen him since. So he wasn't on the bench against Motherwell. He wasn't on the bench again tonight. Do you have concerns about Julian?
Totally. I mean, you must do. It's been so long. The fact that when he was on the bench, I think I was quite surprised because I thought he was still a while away from being match ready. But obviously, he was match ready. But now, with the last 2 games, he's just vanished totally, and nothing's been said.
No,
I mean, Ange's press conference, he says he's fine. He just needs to wait to get take his chance. But if he's not on the bench, he's not going to get a chance, is he?
Well, see, the big thing about that is if you're on the bench, you must be fit enough to start the game because you could get thrown in at any moment.
Exactly, yeah.
So had there been an injury at that point, are you going to overlook Julian and put Welsh in at that point? So then he disappears. The journalist that asks Ange Postecoglou that question is a braver man or woman than I. Twitch comment coming in from a Croc950 who says, Cameron Carter-Vickers is so solid. Yeah, I agree with that. But there is a point here, and I think, and this isn't against Starfelt, by the way, but Croc950 says Scales might be an option as he's left-footed and 6'4". Scales has already stated that his preferred position is in the centre of defence on the left-hand side. I'd like to see him play there. We've seen him playing at left-back. We've seen him playing left-wing back. I would like to see him starting in his preferred position. Why not play him against Wraith Rovers? Why not rest Starfield?
That'd be the perfect game to do it.
Yeah.
A game where they shouldn't be tested too much at that position. So, yeah, get him out there, see how good he is.
Here's another thing before we wrap up for tonight, but I want to bring this in from Pinball. Cameron Carter-Vickers hasn't had much in the way of criticism, certainly on this podcast. But Pinball reckons he's too small. I tell you what, see the amount of balls he wins just because of his positioning. He reads it so well. And I'm talking about aerial duels, where he doesn't even, his feet don't leave the ground. And he's beaten a lot bigger and more physical players, than himself. I think maybe the point is for the cross balls. I think that's maybe the point. We haven't seen him.
I think ideally for me, I would love to, you're talking about the Scales being, 6'3" or 4. A bigger, more imposing centre half to be with Carter-Vickers. Because I'm not slating Starfelt, but he's not the tallest either. So and if we are vulnerable, which is shown tonight, cross ball, set plays, that's in the summer. I think that's a signing I'd like to see us go out and to try and sign because I know Julian's a big defender, but we're talking earlier on about Julian got bullied. He doesn't like the physicality of certain players. So that's one player in the future I think we should try and sign.
We'll go back to when we brought in Duffy and the Chris Ayer and Julian partnership was being questioned back then. When a player's out, it's the old, player getting better whilst he's not playing. And I do rate Julian, don't get me wrong, and I think he scored a lot of important goals for Celtic. But there were questions raised when he was playing. It's not a magic wand. Julian comes in and he's going to just click back in. Interesting, Elfin Priest agrees he wants to see Scales playing there against Wraith Rovers. And let's leave it on a positive from Stephen Gallagher on YouTube. Positivity, boys. Stuffy champions. It is. Yes. We've gone up to Pittodrie. We've won the game. Away back down the road. Everybody enjoy the journey. Safe journeys. Top of the league.
Top of the league.
And we move on to the weekend and the Scottish Cup against Wraith Rovers. Thanks everybody for getting involved. We peaked at 2,200 odds live on the comments, which is tremendous. You've got a community there. You're all part of it. Ewan's part of it. He's in the studio tonight. He'll be in the comments at the weekend. That's what it's all about. Stay in touch. Thanks everybody for getting involved. And thank you to Ewan Martin for joining me once again on a Celtic State of Mind.
Hail, hail.